everybody, close your eyes. Now picture an American. What color is their hair? The shape of their nose? Okay, open your eyes. Did you picture me? I'm an American. Oh. A few months ago, I got into an argument with an advice columnist about, I know, right? About who gets to be called an American. So I generally like her columns, but she wrote this sentence that just jumped out at me. She basically said, if you're American looking and someone asks you, where are you from? It's an icebreaker. They want to know, are you from Cleveland or Chicago? Now, what do you think she meant by that? I think she meant, you're American looking if you're white. And if you look like me, you're not American looking. So I stewed on this for a while, and I couldn't let it go. So I wrote her a note. I asked her to open her eyes to the possibility that someone who looks like me could be American looking. And you know what? She got defensive. She wrote back explaining to me that when somebody who looks like me is asked, where are you from, people are not asking about my citizenship. They want to decode my ethnicity. So her definition of American looking was so entrenched, she completely missed my point. Or she refused to see it. And that's when I got frustrated. It's one thing to perpetuate a stereotype when you don't realize that that's what you're doing. It's entirely another to get defensive when it's pointed out to you. Now, of course, she's not the only one who equates American with white. My mother does too. And so did I for a while. My mother came to the US as an adult. Everyone treated her as a foreigner, and so of course she felt like one too. She may have been a US citizen, but she did not expect anyone to call her American. I live in Skokie, a very diverse neighborhood with lots of immigrant families. And one day my mom went to pick up my kids from school, and she saw all the kids in the playground, and she turned to me and said, Unmi, there's so many kids who are not American. And you know what she meant. There were lots of kids who were not white. So I said to her, Mom, they're all American. I was born in Korea, and I came to the States when I was 2. My father was a graduate student on scholarship. This was in the early 1960s. And growing up, we were pretty much the only Korean family around. Now, I thought that was because Korea was so poor after the Korean War that no one could afford the airfare to come to the US. So I was completely naive. It was because of US immigration policy. Asians basically were not allowed to immigrate to the US. There was a stringent quota system that favored people from Northern Europe. So before the Immigration Act of 1965, 7 out of 8 immigrants were from Europe. Today, 9 out of 10 are not. If you ask a person of color who's an immigrant, when did they come to the US, I will almost guarantee they'll say some date after 1965. So you try it. There are lots of immigrants here, and you'll see, I am right. Up until I was a young adult, if you asked me, where are you from? I would have said, Korea. Because I knew you were not asking about my citizenship. Then I learned some civil rights history that I didn't get in school. I worked with politically active Chinese and Japanese Americans. Their families had been in the US for 3 and 4 generations. They not only were Chinese American or Asian American, they were also just plain, unhyphenated American. But that had not always been the case. In the 1800s, at the time of the Chinese Exclusion Act, Asians were called the yellow peril, and their families were not allowed to own property. During World War II, they were rounded up, incarcerated, and sent to internment camps. These families fought for decades for their rights as Americans, and it's because of them that today I'm an American. So, here I am. What do you say? Can you make space for me in your vision of who is an American? When you see my family and me walking down the street, can you stop and think, hey, There goes a really great American family.